Hey, it's Q101 Lollapalooza. Say that 4 times fast. Lollapalooza, 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 Lollapalooza. See, couldn't get through it. We're a few weeks away from the biggest music festival in the world that has somehow become a destination in our own little city of Chicago. But is the history of alternative, sorry, Brian Phillips, that we must dip back into with a different Brian who's with us. Brian Zierna. Brian, how do I say your name correctly? I almost messed it up. I asked you before we started recording.
Zarnik.
Brian Zarnik, who's been in rock music in Chicago for decades now. You played in bands. You've been involved in music. You have a very, very great YouTube channel that shows off that wonderful record collection that's behind you. You get to see some of it. And you went to the first Lollapalooza that was a touring festival at what was then known as the World Music Festival in Tinley Park in 1991. We're just going to look back at that festival from many years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. It seems like when I went to school, you would like drum up these old people to speak about World War II or something. And now I'm being like drummed up to speak about, kids, there was a Lollapalooza.
Well, let me tell you, we had the Nintendo and it was 16-bit. That was
my horse and my buggy, and I went to see Perry Farrell.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But this is Q101. Alternative music is our thing. We have to be smartasses about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about when you first heard about Lollapalooza, because it truly was a game changer. It introduced the idea of like big groups of people getting together and making these festivals, kind of the way that Europe was doing for a while, but now we were doing it here in the States, and it truly is. Lollapalooza is one of those game-changing things in the world of music.
Yeah, it sure is. I probably, when I was at community college at Triton College, this was fall '89, way back when, a kid in front of me was wearing like a jean coat, it's Slayer and all these cool things on it. And we were chit-chatting about music. And he's like, do you like any alternative music? And I'm like, I was still trying to be cool at that time into like Crew and Skid Row. And I'm like, I don't know what that alternative music is about. He's like, man, you should really listen to it. So he handed me a Jane's Addiction tape. And from that point on, I was just sold. And
you got handed,
you
got handed one of these.
Exactly. I'm like, what is this cassette? So I'm like, cool. And it just blew me away because the song structures and just the whole alternative rock sound was just a new kind of a thing to experience. You're so used to every kind of group almost sounding the same at that point. You had your hard rock sounding the same, your classic rock kind of sounding or the same, 100 classic rock songs you kept hearing over and over. So it was cool to have this new kind of thing happen. And from then I just went crazy with the whole like indie world and the college rock world and all that. So my eyes and ears were open to kind of this new world. And then I want to say around the winter time on MTV, because this is like pre-internet, a few people had like AOL emails.
MTV. It was MTV Rocks. It was actual. Wow,
like, MTV used to be really cool, kids. They started speaking about the singer of Jane's Addiction was going to have this farewell tour, because the word was that the group was kind of like through the drugs and the egos, kind of all through with kind of hanging out with each other. So they were going to go out after their second big successful album with a huge kind of traveling road show. And then slowly after that, I started hearing the word Lollapalooza. And of course, no one knew what the hell it meant. We didn't have computers on our phones to look up what the hell is Lollapalooza mean. So it's just this really weird word that kind of was trapped in your head. And if you're up late after hitting the clubs here in Chicago, you'd go to like Exit, Neo, places like that. You'd come home and MTV would play like alternative and weird, strange music in the very like 2 a.m. hours and 3 a.m. hours. And these groups were speaking about, we're looking forward to hopping on this tour, Lollapalooza. It should be an all afternoon evening event with all these weird groups all playing the same thing. And to your point, you're correct. This is only something we heard about England having like these or Germany having these all afternoon and evening music fairs where all these cool groups were going to play. So for us in the US, it seemed kind of like this new experience you can have, but yet we're all kind of like, how are they going to pull it off? How are they going to play that huge place that you see groups like Styx play when, this is alternative groups that aren't really played? I think Q101 started in 92,
right around that time.
It's like
we were right there. We were kind of like seeing the tea leaves happened before they
Yeah.
fell. But I mean, at the time, it's worth noting that like Nirvana just broke,
Yeah.
like the Red Hot Chili Peppers were just becoming a thing. Like the Seattle sound of not just Nirvana, but Soundgarden, another band that was just becoming a thing that wasn't established. So this was
Exactly.
like this was the real turnover thing, and it happened all very quickly. And at the same time, you think, oh, well, this lineup is just all of those bands. And it isn't all of those big names you've heard about. It's a big variety of different groups, too, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, like you said, Nirvana, I don't think that Smells Like Teen Spirit really broke to like the fall of 91. The album was out, and people were like,
So this
wow,
is the
group,
summer. This is the summer leading up to that.
yeah, they're like, the group is going to be big. But in August 91, it was kind of like some people that followed Sub Pop and groups from the Seattle kind of area were sort of aware that it could happen, but for sure, like Pearl Jam was not huge yet. Alice in Chains wasn't huge yet. So you had all these groups that kind of came around on previous tours as like the opening act or the first group of like 3 bands. So there wasn't a single group within this huge afternoon evening that was capable of filling up a place like that on their own. And you really weren't sure if they were going to fill it up with a sea of people, all 8 groups or how many they had. Trent and had like a whole 9 Inch Nails. That was like a small hit that some of the alternative kids knew about. But
crazy to say that. Isn't that nuts to say right now?
Yeah, these huge groups that you're like, I'd like, oh, that's like Stairway to Heaven. No, it wasn't at the time. It was like some weird little song that some people were hearing at clubs and stuff. So yeah, it was really cool time. At that time, I was 20, so it's like you're 20, you're kind of exploring new worlds and things, and not sure who you are in life. And here's this huge Lollapalooza fair that's going to come to your town. I think we're about the 8th show on the tour. So yeah, it's really cool.
This was Saturday, August 3rd, 1991, World Music Theater, which is now the Credit Union One Amphitheater in Tinley Park. Obviously, they've done some upgrades to it. Different venue at the time. And as we mentioned, a few weeks later, Smells Like Teen Spirit would come out and change the world with Nirvana. So this was ahead of the curve with that. And this lineup, as you mentioned, a band that isn't as big as they are now, and Rock and Roll Hall of Famers in 9 Inch Nails, Jane's Addiction, the headliners, Susie and the Banshees, the Butthole Surfers. I still get away to say that. It's work. Don't get mad at me. Living Color, very familiar with people in Chicago through CM Punk. He does their they do his theme song. Ice-T and Body Count, Rollins Band, and Fishbone. That's quite the lineup there. Quite the lineup. A lot of different sounds there too.
Yeah, I think to me, the first time like worlds collide was I had some friends, I think it was around this time. Anthrax and Public Enemy played the same shows at Aragon or somewhere. And it was like, wow, you can enjoy more than one kind of music and try to pull in all kinds of like crowds and stuff. So that to me was what this afternoon and evening was going to try to accomplish, where, you know, a little bit of rap music, because at that point it was just like alternative music. You weren't hearing rap, you know, and now they call it hip hop. It was not in commercials. It was kind of like the equivalent that the hair bands were in the 80s, where the old people hated it. The church groups were saying, if you listen to it, you're going to go straight to hell. So it was just, here's this weird, evil rap music that's going to come in with the alternative music. And boy, this is going to be an afternoon. You know, it's going to be really cool.
Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of that. It was also very much counterculture in the way it was presented. And not to say that it still isn't. Even though Lollapalooza is one of the big music festivals in the world, it still feels deeply connected to alternative, even though I would say the tent of people it welcomes in is a lot wider than that. But this felt like a real outsiders getting together type thing. What was the crowd like at Lollapalooza when you went?
I remember pulling up in my car, and I brought 2 friends, and we were kind of like the weird kids. Like if we went to a party, or kind of like not really nerd, but kind of on the edge of it, but a little bit strange because you didn't like the same music that other people liked, and your hair wasn't the same. You had an earring or a tattoo. You're a little bit weird. I know it's like, yeah.
Ooh, what? You have tattoos?
like
what? Oh no!
And Hinsdale have like full sleeves now. And so it's no big deal. This is like way back then, 91. You know,
tattoos were still dangerous. A tattoo and a piercing that isn't in your ear is dangerous.
Exactly. I think I had like some kind of weird highlights in my hair too. So it's like, you know, so like you're this weird person, and you pulled up, and we hopped out of our cars, and I'm like, holy cow, there's a sea of every weird kid at every weird party, or each weird kid from each high school or wherever. We're all here at the same time. I wasn't aware that other people liked the same music I liked, or had two-toned hair or tattoos or piercings. This is going to be, wow, this is going to be weird. So yeah, it was like you had a sense of a whole bunch of people who felt like outcasts, but yet we all had a community. So it was like a whole new thing of like, wow, I think this alternative thing is going to start being pretty big.
Now you have a quite the collection there, and you show this off on your YouTube channel. Where can people find your YouTube channel, by the way?
If you search Brian's Fun House, because this is a house full of fun on YouTube. I started it in 2020. I worked through that whole like thing where people were locked in their houses and all that. But come home from work and there's not a lot to do, so I watched a ton of YouTube. And with that, it became like, oh, I hear people on YouTube chit chatting about music and about their album collections and all that stuff. So then I just hopped on that scene. And so yeah, I started Brian's Funhouse in 2020, and about once every week I'll throw up a video about new music that's coming out, or a lot of it is like the older music and stuff, and I just talk about it. But yeah, this is my original shirt from Lollapalooza that I bought.
Can we get a look at that? Can we get a look at the shirt? I'll pull you up full screen. Look, that's from the original tour. That's the original Lollapalooza tour. What a find there. And then are the bands in the back logo there?
Yeah, and then all your groups are here.
Wow.
So like when you went to school and you wore like a Metallica shirt, so that was really cool. But you wore this and you had all of these bands on. You were like 8 times as cool as the other people were. So yeah, it's pretty neat, and it shows like all the tour days. It's so strange to think that it was a traveling tour, because it's such a big show to put on. I'm sure it's hard enough just to put on here in Chicago, but yeah, for the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them, it was like a traveling show.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of, especially people that are younger than you and I, like it is Chicago. It's summer in Chicago, is Lollapalooza, and there's nothing wrong with things changing and evolving. But at the time, it was where are you going to go and see it? Like that was a big thing. Like I have older siblings. They're like, oh, I know someone who's going to Tinley Park. I know someone who's going to go. Yeah. There was I think one year they had it in Rockford. It was out near Rockford. Nice. So there I was talking to some people. I found a news report on it taking over a town in Rockford because it was at like a fairground or something like that. So there's a lot of history of this that I think is really important in a part of the culture of alternative rock music that now is history. It is history. It shouldn't be disregarded because it changed the world. Like this is like our culture, and I think it needs to be remembered. When I got to go back to that shirt though. The shirt, have you worn it? Have you washed it? Do you get worried about it? Because those shirts, people have offered you money for that shirt. I know.
Oh yeah, I saw on eBay like easily 100 or more. I did not wear the shirt too much. 91 was a great year for me. I saw like Jesus Jones, local shows, Naked Ray Gun and Pegboy. I saw a ton of great shows. So I would only wear the shirt from the previous show for a small amount, and I bought 2 at Lollapalooza. So I probably only wore the shirt a few times. And then I grew up always appreciating things and like kind of hoarding things. So I knew like, yeah, this is probably a shirt I'm going to hold on to for a while. So I put it in a drawer and then had it in storage for a while. And the last few years when I finally purchased a house here, there's enough room to kind of hang it up and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really cool. For me, it was just cool to have all these groups on to kind of show people like, this is who I am, kind of a thing. These are the soundtracks of my existence, so to speak. But yeah, I think when MTV had a report, it was from Phoenix, which was the first show, and they were saying like how the heat was screwing up the keyboards and electronics, and they weren't sure if the full show would happen. So you kind of had this urgency when the show came to your town. Is all the people in the groups still going to be alive? Because you kept hearing like, oh, this one's a drug addict, that one's a drug addict. It was pretty sad, but you're like, A, are they going to show up and be alive and able to play? And B, is the whole event really going to happen? Or like, are the police going to come in and kind of, close it? Because here's all these scary kids all forming this big
there was a sense of like turbulence to it. Like you got to get on this ride while you can. Yeah.
Yeah, Lollapalooza 3 was Rage Against the Machine. I saw Tool play the small stage. And I recall if you were crowd surfing, security was still amped up to kind of beat your face in. So it was still not like this, hey, this is cute. I'm crowd surfing. Let me take a selfie. The first 3 years, if you were involved in the pit or
Wait,
if you
there
were
were
crowd
concerts
surfing,
before. Wait, are you telling me there were concerts before
yeah, it's
you could take a
unreal.
selfie?
Yeah. I wish I had a phone or like a camera back then because you couldn't sneak anything in. Like if you even held your hand up and people thought you snuck in a camera, there was somebody, blocking it. It was been so cool to get. I've seen some people post on YouTube a clip from Lollapalooza, I believe it was 3 when Al Jorgensen and them were playing and people were
Ministry.
throwing mud. Yeah. And I was one of those people in the pit and I was grabbing the mud like, yeah, take this, security. You're trying to oppose me. Take a piece of mud.
I
It was great.
I believe the limit of persecution, the time in which you could be criminalized for that is past.
Yeah.
You're lucky, Brian.
Yeah. Oh, thank God.
I could go on and on with you, Brian. Once again, tell them where the YouTube channel is, and I know you have some other projects and other things you've worked on that people can check out.
Yeah, if you search Brian's Funhouse on YouTube, I'm sure the channel icon will show up. It's like a little clown head. I'm currently in a band called Space Age Zeros, and we're play like pop punk, power pop stuff. So we're playing around town in Chicago. It is a whole new world from playing in groups around Lollapalooza time. We were playing in front of this young, urgent crowd to, and now you're a bit older, so you're playing in front of like a crowd at a bar, having a drink or two. But it's so cool playing in bands and stuff. But
selfies are allowed though, right? Selfies are allowed.
Plenty of people are taking pictures. I always say we're older now, so you don't got to zoom in. You can have a nice big shot of the group. There's no reason to zoom in.
Do you have a show coming up or anything like that, or where
we have a show tomorrow? So I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we jumped on a bill last minute at Livewire Lounge. But if you head on social media, look at Space Age Zeros, just like our page, and we usually play out like once a month, and our album is going to hit all the streaming September 13th. It'll be called Strange New World.
Cool. Yeah. So definitely go give them a follow, support local rock music, support local alternative rock music. And Brian, thank you so much. And definitely check out the YouTube channel. I watched a lot of the videos and I had to reach out to you. I was Googling Lollapalooza's first Chicago show.
Oh, okay.
And you were the first guy that came up, and I was like, this is the guy I got to talk to. Yeah.
One thing that'll kill people that are currently seeing Lollapalooza, the ticket was $20. $20.
Oh, now we're gonna get someone angry in the comments. Yeah, all right.
I can't even buy a water for $20.
Brian, you close out on a big one. You close out on a big one. Brian, thank you so much. Once again, Brian's Funhouse on YouTube. Check out Space Age Zeros, and just thank you for just sharing your experience with us. I really appreciate
sure, no problem. No problem at all.